Weather buff. Good day, everyone. I'm Jack KANACK, the weather medic, the doctor of weather. And I'd like to introduce to you my co-host, JJ PTAK. JJ.
Here I am. How you doing, Jack?
Very good. I'd like to thank you for all joining us today. We're going to talk about Presidential Inauguration Day weather, beginning with George Washington and ending with Joe Biden, plus a few weather and fun facts along the way. Your emails are always welcome. If you have a weather question or a question regarding the show, you can reach me by my email at wxmedic@gmail.com. That is WX, the abbreviation for weather, and the word medic @gmail.com. Also, if you are new to this channel and like the content, please subscribe and hit the like button. This presidential inauguration weather series has 4 parts.
Part 1, traditional inaugurations were indoors beginning in 1789 until 1813. Weather records are unofficial during this period.
Part 2, we have outdoor presidential March inaugurations from 1817 through 1869. Weather records are unofficial during this period.
And then in part 3, we'll have outdoor presidential March inaugurations from 1873 to 1933, and the weather records are official.
And finally, part 4, we have outdoor presidential January inauguration starting in 1937 and going through 2021. And welcome to part 2 of the outdoor presidential March inaugurations from 1817 to 1869, where the weather records are unofficial during this period.
In 1817, we have James Monroe. The first inauguration of James Monroe as the 5th president of the United States was held on Tuesday, March 4th of 1817 in front of the old brick Capitol, where the Supreme Court building now stands in Washington, D.C. The inauguration marked the commencement of the first 4-year term of James Monroe as president. The weather was 50 degrees outside, warm and sunny, and this was the first outdoor inauguration, and the noon temperature is estimated.
And here's a slide of James Monroe. Notice that the Bureau of Engraving did the portrait so they could put his portrait potentially on some money. Now, in 1821, we had the second inauguration of James Monroe as President of the United States. Now, this was held on a Monday, March 5th, 1821, and the normal day would have been March 4th, would have fallen on a Sunday, JJ. And the reason that they did this was they didn't want to interfere with the Sabbath of the Sunday being a religious day. So they moved it to a Monday, anytime the inauguration fell on a Sunday. And this was the first one. So what happened there, it was 28 degrees during this ceremony on March 5th. The observation was taken by John Quincy Adams, who would become the next president coming up. Snow began on Saturday evening, making Washington snowbound by Sunday afternoon. Snow continued through the inauguration day, forcing Monroe to take his oath of office in the House chambers.
In 1825, the next president was John Quincy Adams, and his inauguration was on March 4th. March 4th, all ye soldiers. March 4th of 1825, as the 6th President of the United States. The location was the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. For weather, we had 47 degrees Fahrenheit and rain. The total rainfall was 0.79 inches, and the observations were taken by Adams himself. And as a little side note, John Quincy Adams was the first president to have been the son of a former president. That would have been John Adams.
Right. And John Quincy Adams, by the way, was elected president by the United States House of Representatives. One of the four candidates secured a majority of votes in the Electoral College in the 1824 presidential election, as prescribed by the 12th Amendment. The outcome was assured when Henry Clay, one of the frontrunners, threw his support to, at that time, Mr. Adams, so that Andrew Jackson's candidacy would fail. Jackson had polled more popular votes in the election, but he did not gain enough electoral votes to win outright. So that was very interesting. I guess it was the first time in history that that type of thing kind of happened, and it happened many times since.
Well, the Electoral College thing.
yeah, that's the first time really the Electoral College came into play. And I was just going to say, Adams there ran for re-election in 1828, but then he lost to Andrew Jackson. So that was just a very interesting side note there in history.
1829, the first inauguration of Andrew Jackson happened again on the 4th of March. He was the 7th president of the United States, and that occurred in the location of the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C., and was the first time in which the ceremony was held on the eastern portico of the United States Capitol. And as for weather, well, it was 57 degrees Fahrenheit. It was warm and balmy, and this noon temperature is estimated. And
this is I guess you could say, not a photograph, but just a painting of this inauguration. In 1833, we have the second inauguration of Andrew Jackson. And of course, this is a portrait of Andrew Jackson that was done by the Bureau of Printing and Engraving, because of course they use that for money. And I believe Jackson, he's on the $20 bill. Is that correct? JJ.
I don't happen to have any handy. I don't know.
Okay.
If I run and get my purse, I might have that.
Yeah, he's on the $20 bill. Well, this second inauguration occurred on March 4th, 1833, and it was located at the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. Now, interesting thing about the weather, they gave the temperatures 29 degrees Fahrenheit, with the weather being uncertain. And they said it was probably fair weather based on description of happy crowds.
29 degrees and people were real happy. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So they thought it was fair because the people were happy. So the noon temperature is estimated here. I just thought that was pretty funny that you had happy crowds.
Well, that's good. Well, they voted him in.
All right. And look at that, JJ. He is on the $20 bill.
Well, now we know that he's on the $20 bill, and now I don't have to look that up for you because you happen to have one handy.
Yeah, it's one of my few 20s that I have.
One of your favorite possessions.
Right.
We cherish that. We cherish all your pictures of Andrew Jackson.
Right. Well, I had to take off my Aurora there to, because the green screen was with the green money.
Yeah.
And it was fuzzing out the money.
Right, 1837 on the 4th of March at the East Portico of the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. That's where Martin Van Buren for the Bureau of the United States Government. This was the 13th inauguration and marked the commencement of the only 4-year term of both Martin Van Buren as president. Okay.
Wow.
And according to this, we had 26 degrees, sunny and brisk, and that temperature again is sunny and, or that's estimated. And then we have a cute little factoid over there. Martin Van Buren was the first U.S. president who was not born a British subject.
Yeah, they were all born British subjects before that.
Right.
Isn't that interesting? And I just have to get a portrait here of Martin Van Buren. That's Martin Van Buren.
And then we have,
of course, they had all these with the, you know, engravings.
Engraving, yeah. Does he sit on money? I don't think he's on money.
No, I don't think he is, but they did
unless it's something that I don't have, you know, something really big, you know.
Yeah, we wouldn't have that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's get.
By the way, there's a cool factoid about that. And Van Buren would become the last sitting vice president to be inaugurated as president through an election until George H.W. Bush in 1989.
Yep. Yeah. Isn't that very interesting? I thought it was interesting, but it's a little fun fact there, you know.
Fun facts are cool.
Yep.
The inauguration of William Henry Harrison as the 9th president of the United States was held on Thursday, March 4th of 1841 at the East Portico of the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. This was the 14th inauguration and marked the commencement of the not even complete 4-year term of William Henry Harrison as president and John Tyler as vice president. The presidential oath of office happened that day. He died 31 days into his term, the first U.S. president to die in office, and has the shortest presidential term in American history.
And this, of course, is I gave him 2 pictures because he had the shortest term in office. So this was a picture of the crowds around the inauguration on that day. And of course, it was a damp and gray day in Washington, D.C. for the inaugural parade for President William Henry Harrison on March 4th, 1841. Now, even though the temperature was not really that bad, because he died later, a month later, from pneumonia. And of course, it was, you know, a century later, we could say he died from the rockin' pneumonia and the boogie woogie flu. But it was 48 degrees, but there was this cold, blustery wind with this overcast sky. So it was a very, I guess it was a very bitey wind. And here's a picture of him, the second picture. Of course, I did 2, of course.
He already looks unhealthy.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, from what the historians are saying, his speech lasted 1 hour, 40 minutes, and he rode a horse to and from the Capitol without a hat or an overcoat. So he was outside a long time. And
we wanted this guy for a president.
Yeah, and now he already had a lingering cold, JJ. And they think that this pneumonia developed from the lingering cold that he caught on that day, and then he died 1 month later on April 4th, 1841.
This guy didn't sound like he was the brightest bulb in the store. And they didn't even have bulbs in the stores yet.
No, you can't say that because they didn't have bulbs in the stores yet.
Okay, he wasn't the brightest candle in the box. How about that?
Yeah, very good. Very good. Now, the next president, Tyler, when we get to it, succeeded him to the presidency, creating precedents which would be followed 7 more times before it was officially regulated through the 25th Amendment in 1967. So really what they had for the historians, that if you had a president die in office. Well, you had the vice president, but you had nobody. If the vice president died in office, you had nobody coming up to fulfill that until the 25th Amendment, which,
They were taking a little bit of a chance there.
yeah, well, they never addressed that problem. So just very interesting thing
Well, it
to,
took them until 1967 to figure out they needed to do that.
yeah, just in case something happened,
Because you
like,
never know.
right, you never know when a president will resign, and then, you
And then the
know,
vice president
a
and
vice
everybody else.
president will resign, and, you know, then the president will resign, and then who takes his space, you know? But we have a succession where the third in line would be the House now, Representatives.
Well,
So,
it's good to know they finally decided to figure that out.
yeah, yeah. Well, before they didn't. There was nothing in place if your president died and then your vice president died that replaced the president. So, very interesting.
President John Tyler was inaugurated on April the 6th of 1841, and the location was Brown's Indian Queen Hotel in Washington, D.C. The score was 50 degrees. There were clear skies. A new temperature was estimated, and this is the first non-scheduled extraordinary inauguration to ever take place in American history. And there's an interesting engraving.
Yep.
I don't think he's on money.
No, well, yeah, I don't think he is either. I don't know. Well, if these guys are, you know, somebody out there in YouTube land could just send us an email.
I'm sure that no, I don't think we have him there.
Okay.
In 1845, on the 4th of March, of course, we have the inauguration of James K. Polk, who is not Polish. His name just sounds that way. He was the 11th president of the United States, and that happened in the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. Tell us about the weather, Jack.
Well, it's this is a picture of the crowd with umbrellas in front of the platform on the east portico of the U.S. Capitol, where he took the oath of office under a very heavy rain. It was 42 degrees Fahrenheit. We had a thunderstorm at dawn with rain during the day. The total rainfall was 0.40, 4/10 of an inch of rain. So Polk took this office under that heavy rain, under an umbrella. Now, the crowd was a sea of umbrellas with people standing ankle deep in mud, JJ. And what I was going to tell people, that when we talk about like 4/10 of an inch or 40 hundredths of an inch, hundredth of an inch is actually the amount of rain where the streets get wet. So once your street gets all wet, that's 100th of an inch of rain.
So 0.4 is almost a half an inch.
Right, but so this 4/10 of an inch happened 40, like your street got wet 40 times. Of course, back then they didn't have streets; they just had dirt roads and mud, and so things were very muddy. And of course, in the winter,
they were actually standing. Looks like on the lawn. They probably wrecked the lawn.
Oh yeah, well they said they were standing ankle deep in mud. So
they were on the lawn. They made a mess out of the lawn. Somebody had to come in and do a bunch of work to fix that up.
Yep.
But nobody died of pneumonia. At least the president didn't.
Right. Right.
Of course, he learned his lesson. He didn't speak for an hour and 40 minutes in a heavy rain like one of his predecessors did. So I think he figured that one out.
Right. I think they all learned their lesson from that one.
Won't do that again.
Correct.
The inauguration of Zachary Taylor as the 12th president of the United States was held on Monday, March 5th, 1849, at the East Portico of the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C., and was the second instance of an inauguration being rescheduled to March, due to March 4th falling on a Sunday, which is the Christian Sabbath. This was the 16th inauguration and marked the commencement of the only four-year term of both Zachary Taylor as president and Millard Fillmore as vice president. Taylor died.
And I was going to say, of course, Millard Fillmore, he has a Buffalo connection because we're based out of Buffalo here, Buffalo, New York.
Right. We got a few things over here. Fillmore Avenue. We had Millard Fillmore Hospital and all kinds of other stuff going on here in Buffalo.
Yep.
Fillmore's a big boy over here. Taylor died 1 year and 126 days into this term of the presidency. There's Zachary Taylor, and he doesn't look too happy.
No, he doesn't. He kind of looks like he's having a bad hair day there.
Grumpy.
Yeah. Well, maybe he's very tough, you know.
Must be one of those tough. Yeah, a grumpy tough guy.
Looks like a grumpy tough guy.
Well, he's probably grumpy about the weather.
Well, the weather during the inauguration day started off being cloudy with snow flurries. It was 42 degrees Fahrenheit, cloudy with snow flurries during the inauguration, but turned to heavy snow during the inaugural balls. And that, of course, was on Monday, March 5th, because of the Christian Sabbath.
And he was grumpy because of that weather. Heavy snow on his inauguration day.
Yes, absolutely. But we don't know how much because weather records are unofficial. Yep.
Did they even? Yeah, they gave us a. Yeah, they gave us a temperature. Now, was that an official temperature at that point?
No, not until not until 1870 when they started being official. So all these temperatures for this whole series are unofficial.
All right.
Part 2.
And now in 1850, on July 10th, we have the inauguration of President Millard Fillmore. We have a Buffalo connection here.
Yep.
That happened inside the House chamber in the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C., following the death of President Zachary Taylor. That happened the previous day. This inauguration, a second non-scheduled extraordinary inauguration ever to take place, marked the commencement of the only term of Millard Fillmore, which was 2 years, 237 days. He was president. Fillmore was the last president from neither the Democratic nor the Republican parties. That's interesting.
Yep, every president in this country. So it's really been a two-party system since the beginning of 1853 with the next president, but they were all either Democrats or Republicans. For Millard Fillmore, we had 87 degrees Fahrenheit with cloudy skies because, of course, it wasn't during March 4th for the inauguration. The ceremony, however, was held indoors, and that noon temperature is estimated.
Yeah.
So there's a picture of Millard Fillmore.
From Buffalo.
Yes, for our fans in Buffalo.
That's a nice chair.
I wonder if, like, what was it, Buffalo Company Kittinger Furniture made that chair?
Who knows? All I know is it's a very lovely antique.
Yes.
The inauguration of Franklin Pierce as the 14th president of the United States was held on Friday, March 4th of 1853 in the East Portico of the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. This was his 17th inauguration and marked the commencement of the only 4-year term of Franklin Pierce as president. Pierce affirmed the oath of office rather than swear it, and was also the first president to recite his inaugural address from memory. Now, I kind of wonder why he affirmed the oath of office rather than swore it. Maybe he didn't like swearing? I don't know.
Maybe he wasn't religious.
I have no idea. Well, not all the presidents were, but that's quite something to recite it. A lot of our presidents don't recite anything.
True.
That's pretty good.
President Franklin Pierce was sworn into office on another cold, windy, and snowy day. He awoke to heavy snow in the morning, which continued until about 11:30 a.m. Skies looked to be brightening by noon. Shortly after Pierce took his oath of office, as he began his inaugural address, snow started again. It came down heavier than ever, dispersing much of the crowd and ruining plans for the parade. Abigail Fillmore First Lady to the outgoing president, Millard Fillmore, caught a cold as she sat on the cold, wet, exposed platform during the swearing-in ceremony. The cold developed into the rockin' pneumonia and boogie-woogie flu there, JJ. And she died at the end of the month. Too bad she couldn't go to like Millard Fillmore Hospital.
Yeah, really.
In Buffalo there, yeah. It was 35 degrees. The temperature, of course, is estimated. So actually, it was a pretty cold day in March there in Washington.
And he's doing his best Napoleon Bonaparte imitation with his hand tucked in over there.
Is he reaching for a pen or is he reaching for a gun?
I have no idea, but his hair got wet out there. Look at his hair.
Yep.
In 1857, the inauguration of James Buchanan as the 15th president of the Wednesday, March the 4th of 1857, at the East Portico of the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. This was the 18th inauguration and marked the commencement of the only four-year term of both James Buchanan as president. And this first inauguration ceremony is the first one it is known to be photographed.
So you have got it right here on this channel.
There's a nice picture.
The first one to be photographed. It was 49 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny.
And that's kind of a fuzzy picture, but then those first cameras, no, they weren't too bad, but there you go.
Well, it certainly wasn't digital.
No, it was not.
But
although I kind of like the film pictures. I think I had, although looking back at my pictures, I think my film photos are actually nicer than the digital ones.
Well, you know what you could also see is that you also get a lesson in technology, that we went from just paintings now to crude pictures, and the pictures get better. And as we go through this series, then the pictures get into color and they get sharper. And
no more engravings.
Right. No more engravings. They've got pictures now. So
that's cool.
There you go. So
in 1861, we had the first inauguration of President Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, at the U.S. Capitol under construction. That would happen on March 4th in 1861. And this is back when the Republican Party was more interested in the nation than it was in party politics.
Right, and you can see they're constructing that Capitol there. There's a picture of an actual photograph of them constructing the Capitol. Yeah, and it was rain until mid-morning and then sunny and mild in the afternoon. So obviously a warm front came through in the morning.
Yeah, look at that. That's a neat picture. And it's a photo too. It's
a very neat picture. And then, of course, in 1865, we have the second inauguration of Abraham Lincoln. And this took place on Saturday, March 4th, 1865. And that was at the East Portico of the United States Capitol. And it was the 20th inauguration and marked the second and final term of Abraham Lincoln as president of the United States. Now, Lincoln was assassinated, of course, 42 days into his term, and Andrew Johnson, succeeded him to the presidency. And fun facts, this was the first inauguration to feature African Americans in the inaugural parade and was the first inauguration to be extensively photographed. So notice how the photograph in this picture was much better than the previous picture.
It was 45 degrees Fahrenheit with rain for 2 days, and right after the ceremony, when it ended and the sun broke through, the total rainfall for the day was 0.3 of an inch, with the bulk of it falling near daybreak. The grounds around the Capitol were very soft and muddy. I wonder what kind of a mess that made.
I'm sure it made quite the mess. And also, JJ, that Lincoln is on the $5 bill.
You see a lot of his face.
Yep. So he's still on the I don't know why he's on a $5 bill, but you know.
Well, was it Washington's on the one, right?
Yes.
First president, you know.
Yes.
You see their faces more.
Okay, so Lincoln's on the 5.
The inauguration of Andrew Johnson as the 17th President of the United States was held on April 15th of 1865 at the Kirkwood House in Washington, D.C., following the sad assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. And this inauguration marked the commencement of Andrew Johnson's only term, a partial term of 3 years, 323 days as president. It was a third non-scheduled extraordinary inauguration to take place.
Yep, and here we're going to show you a picture of Kirkwood House where the inauguration took place.
Not a photograph.
No, actually at the time they really didn't have anything set up. There was very few, not a lot of photography.
Well, they didn't have any instant cameras back then.
Right. So they didn't really just like, oh, we need a photographer. So they didn't have that. So you back to a picture again because
back to a drawing.
They weren't set up for that.
Okay.
And of course, that day outside, it was 57 degrees Fahrenheit in a rainy day. 35/100ths of an inch of rain fell. So that's enough to get the streets wet 35 times.
President Ulysses S. Grant was inaugurated on the 20th of March of 1869. He delivered his first inaugural address at the East Portico of the U.S. Capitol.
And what I was going to tell you is the weather. Yeah, this was an actual photograph because, of course, they had time to prepare for this, you know, so they could do it. We had 40 degrees Fahrenheit, light rain all morning, but it stopped just before noon. The afternoon was mostly sunny. The total rain was 11/100ths of an inch, JJ.
Fairly damp.
Right.
Fairly damp. And that was the last estimated
weather report. Please join us for our next video, part 3, which will be outdoor presidential march inaugurations from 1873 through 1933, where the weather records are indeed official. Thank you as always to my co-host, JJ PTAK.
Very happy to be here.
Very happy to have you here. Your emails are always welcome. If you have a weather question or a question regarding the show, you can reach me by my email at wxmedic@gmail.com. That's WX, the abbreviation for weather, and the word medic@gmail.com. Also, if you're new to this channel and like the content, please subscribe and hit the like button. Thank you for making Weather Buff a part of your day. Good day, everyone.